What's going on, guys? Another Sunday scan coming at you. This time we've got some good stuff to go over, but one key issue that I've been seeing over and over and over with traders that I want to touch base on before we go over the scan, because I think it's going to help you kind of identify what stocks may keep on going higher and sort of how not to pre-exhaust. We've already done a pre-exhaustion post on YouTube. I would highly suggest, looking that one up and watching it. It was maybe about 6 or 7 videos ago, I think. But I think that it is, very, very timely right now, especially in this type of market where, things are just going straight up. Forget the market for a minute, but some of these other names like Wayfair, W, mRNA, INO, you name it. I mean, just steady. And people start to get biased. People start to get biased based off of particular moves that happen. They think they've ran too much. They see it kind of going steady. And they start thinking that every little pullback is the top. And, look, at one point, that little pullback will be the top. But for now, you should assume that every single time it's not. And, one of the most common questions that we got last week, or at least that I got, PMs, Traders Lounge, which, typically when I get it a lot, I would generalize across, most traders, is asking if I thought certain things were the backside, asking if I thought it was a short because it just had pulled back a little bit, thinking a few cent pullback was a trend change. Ignoring the key levels that I posted in the room. This was a big one. INO, NVAX, mRNA, ZM. The difference between a dabble, a feeler trade, and, your actual trade. Sometimes I like to get into a name just to kind of be in there. Just like NVAX, mRNA, when we nailed those off the open. I had a little bit on, dead wrong, but that's okay. I needed to be in the name to start to zone in, get familiar with it, and really kind of become one with it to be able to take the trade and make the trade that I did in a big way. And very similar with Shop, which was my trade of the year so far. I had to dabble in a little bit. So the confusion or the disconnect between a lot of traders is that they start in, and what they tell themselves is it's a starter, it's a feeler. But in reality, it's really about half their size, right? So then when it starts to go and go, they're panic selling, or panic covering rather, and, freaking out, pre-exhausting themselves and missing the entire trade. So, typically say I wanted to get into 5,000 or 10,000 shares of a particular stock, right? Short. I might dabble in 500 to a max of maybe 1,000 to 1,500 shares. Just to dabble, just to kind of be there, be familiar, and like I said, become one with the stock. Start kind of zoning in, watching it, getting a feel for what's going on. For a lot of you, that might be an ignore. It might be an ignore to wait for certain key levels to break. So when you are trading the front side of a move, just make sure you ask yourself, what is my full size going to be on this? What would I typically trade on this? If it's 5 to 10K, then maybe 500 or 1,000 is your answer. If it's 1,000 or 2,000 shares, then 500 or 1,000 is not a starter position. It's not a feeler. So avoid the trade altogether. Because what happens is it brings out the worst in you. And all traders do it, but you start in, and then you start to think that every little pullback is the pullback. Then you add in, then you add in, then you add in. All of a sudden, you have 2,000 shares when that was going to be your full size, and you're at your max exposure. It's at the highs, and you know how it goes from there. So, obviously, INO was probably the most popular one, right? It provided some great opportunities both Thursday and Friday if you took the trade. But if you were trying to outsmart it, if you were trying to find the top, if you were ignoring the key levels posted in the room, especially, then, you obviously got ran over. And it's fine to lose on it, but it's the difference between, exhausting yourself and just kind of adding and getting yourself in a situation where you could have avoided it altogether. And you have to understand that most people on these names, ZM, NVAX, mRNA, and most, recently INO, most people are bent. So your edge is going to be once it turns that you're actually going to be able to let this thing breathe. You're going to let this thing work. Whereas all these other traders are just looking to break even. And so when it pulls back and it stops going down, that's the point where it's just going to swipe right back up on the front side of the move. And that's what you have to be aware of. And that's exactly why, 1230, 1240s, 1270s, and 1340s were such key levels on INO, which I went over in the room on Friday. So, I was a broken record all day and Thursday as well. If you're trading it, be aware, don't step in front. And it always comes back to, I'd rather be 30 or 50 cents late than $3 to $5 too early. And that is the same thing for all these things. Shop, rather be $5, $10 late than, 50 too early. So keep that in mind. It's a big problem, and it's the most common question I get. Like I said, if I get that question, 10, 20, 30 times, then I pretty much apply it to, every beginner trader. And they're all doing the same things, and you're going to be able to better yourself if you recognize it. I get the same question on different tickers, but if you just switched out the ticker, it's the same chart. So there is a big disconnect in traders with thinking that just because a move, has happened or it's up, they think that, at some point it has to pull back, and it's just not the case. Same thing with Wayfair. It went 500 or 600% off the lows. And, no, not just because it's up that much means it's going to pull back. When it's that crazy of a move, that's when the crazy move happen. That's where shorts get bent. That's where shorts, short to short, and rather than, waiting for that trend to turn. So just like ZM on Friday, I dabbled here and there. I was covering into the flushes at 175. Pretty much a relatively flat trade, but just kind of had a little bit on just to be familiar with it. And even when the headline hit into the close, which ZM ended up being my best trade of the day on Friday, but even when the headline hit, I still wanted to be proven that the level, in which case it was 175, got heavy. And so at some point we'll probably do a video on it, but I wanted to be proven, my thesis that was the lows, wanted to be proven that that base became resistance, right? So now every time it comes down, it's hitting off this base and bouncing. But now I want to see it fail, 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 and stay heavy. And the other biggest thing is people tend to think that if it just hits that 175 level, okay, it's backside. It's not the case at all. You want to see that trend change. You want to see it crack under that 175. You want to see it retest that 175. I'm talking about ZM here, for example. So you can go back and look at Friday's move. You want to see it fail, 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 and then the dominoes will fall. Same thing, INO. Go back, look left. Look at all the key areas. And I think it was 1440s. I think I said 1340s. Let's see. No, 1440s. So 1440s is going to be a key level on Monday. And same thing, look left up top, probably right around 1490s. So I'm in no rush to get that trade. When this thing pulls back, it's going to offer us $3, $4, $5 per share. And here you are trying to fight to get that top, and you're losing, 30, 40, 50 cents, $1, $2 per share. So just wait. It's probably going to gap down on Monday, but that's okay. That means the trend's starting to change a little bit, potentially. So I think that's about it, what I wanted to cover to start today. A little bit of the recap from last week. For those of you guys that checked out Project Impact, which we, between that and Chart Summit, because we supported the Chart Summit, we ended up donating over $180,000. So that was awesome. And I really appreciate you guys being part of that, especially all those who donated. We had a lot of 5, 10, 20, $50 type donors, and you know what? They did a lot more than a lot of people. So, the people that came and watched it for free and didn't even donate $5, hey, that's okay. But the people that wrote to me and said, hey, I didn't have much, but I only donated $5 or $10, you did a lot more than some people. So it's pat yourself on the back for being part of that movement where a bunch of traders came together and raised over $180,000. That's big, and that was only in a weekend, so that's pretty cool. But with that said, the reason I brought that up is on that Saturday, I talked about having a thesis, but really just the sector trades and theme trades. And so on Wednesday and Thursday, I was talking that I thought oil and gas and the cheap 50-cent sub-dollar type oil and gas names were going to be the next hot theme, hot sector. And so with that, I got long WLL, OAS, FTSI, AXAS, and they had nice runs. And then it was literally peak FOMO on Friday morning. I mean, everything was up 100%, and ended up flipping short. Got out of the long, flipping short. Great calls in the room. Great way to start a Friday. Waking up, being up 50 to 100% on a bunch of names. So that was awesome. And that is an exact example of understanding, themes and sectors that are starting to heat up, seeing that abnormal volume, seeing how they're reacting to, you see one starting to move, you see the other one starting to get volume, and then you start going down the list of all these different sympathy names. And as you saw, there was, dozens and dozens tripling and doubling, and, at worst, maybe 20 to 50%. So last but not least, a couple swing ideas. You guys knew PSTI, that was on Sunday Scan last week. That was a big one. Very similar to THMO right now. Very thin name, but it should have died. Should have pulled back by now. It's been hanging on, so I've been watching that one. I don't have a position on it. I thought about it, but kind of ran away from me. So I'll be watching that one on dips this week. And then CHK, for those of you guys that pay attention on Twitter, I gave the swing idea at $15, and it closed around 40 on Friday. I wrote the entire thesis out, why I felt like this was a special case scenario, why I felt like this was a unique opportunity given the reverse split, given how much volume it had traded, given the levels, and told people not to underestimate the fact that it could go to 40. And that's exactly where we closed on Friday. So big trade for me there, and we have a big trade on that coming. So other than that, price alerts. I put a section on the scan tonight. And by the way, if you're ever just listening to these, you can also click the link in the description, and that'll bring you to some other thoughts that I kind of handwrite out onto scan. But I have a couple names that I'm going to just have price alerts set. So like I'd say, every week we have a nice feature in the room that just kind of gives us a car horn, a beep noise when it hits. And usually I find all these charts that I like, but you go into chart overload. You're watching too many names. So basically I look and I start to look left. All right, what levels would I care about? And so I start putting, levels higher and lower. And I know that when those levels hit, I'll be told. And then they're off radar. I don't have to overload my, my head with all these different ideas, and I can just focus. So I've got some price alerts, the ones that I'm going to probably set, like AMRN, mRNA, NVAX, and a bunch of others. And then we get into the main watches. And I've only got 4 main watches, and then the rest are just going to be some secondary type watches. So W, Wayfair. So we'll go ahead and get right into this. So W is pretty much steady trend all day. You can see that it started to kind of grind up, break out, hold a higher low, and pretty much had some trouble at the 123 level. And so that's going to be a key level for me, but they also got a downgrade after hours. So it did pull back a little bit on that. So I'll be watching pops for the potential unwind. But one thing to keep in mind, I watch these charts because they overextend and they're going. And then there's going to be that one day that they just say, hey, all those shorts got exhausted and it unwinds. That's the day I care about, just like shop. But it doesn't mean that it's over. A lot of times they just kind of pull the plug for a day. There's some type of event where a bunch of covers come in and then there's no bids and then they pick up the pieces. And so that's why I stock these names to wait for that, that turn. And so I'm watching this thing, even if it gaps down a buck or two or three or four, I'm still interested. And I'll be looking left to kind of get a feel for, all right, well, on Friday it had a base there. Now it's starting to peak there. Add a little bit more. Okay, this was the next level. Starting to kind of base here. Maybe I should cover a little bit, rescale if it fails. Fails, I might rescale and then slowly scale into the trade from there. But the most important part is going to be taking the trade and not trying to be a hero, not trying to turn this into something that it's not. You're looking to take advantage of this, squeeze. You're taking advantage of this move and then on to the next. And that's exactly, shop was a huge trade and, it's actually come back quite nicely, but I don't care. I took the high A+, high probability, setup. Took it, covered, left. Then I don't start to form a bias. It's very easy to do that. mRNA, NVAX, how many people are still trying to, get aggressive and think this is going to unwind, and then they end up, overstaying and it grinds back. So for me, I am just totally zoned on that A+ setup, and then that's it. Wait for the next opportunity. Meso was fantastic. Great parabolic short. You guys can look at Instagram. I posted that one, Instagram or Twitter, so you can get a feel for how I traded that one. Once again, we were given a nice gift by the newsletter, buying the top again. As I always say, I like to focus on third parties that create some type of market that wouldn't otherwise be there. You get a free look at how the market reacts to all these sheep, all this retail volume coming in, and a lot of times you learn a lot. And it doesn't always just mean short. A lot of times if it wraps up and it starts to go, it turns into a great momentum play. But if it ramps up and meets a wall of sellers and just does not budge, then you got that free look. You can react to it because all those sheep that just bought because their leader bought are all going to be looking to get out. Because at the end of the day, the newsletter holds for 7 seconds at best. So I'm going to be looking for higher the better. I would be very cautious with this thing overnight. But on that same note, if the trend holds, I would be super cautious, fighting, thinking that they, have to raise. But there is a good chance that they do and will, and I'll be looking to take advantage of that. CHK was fantastic. I have a little bit of left on this one. Had a nice breakout. So as you guys know, swing trade idea I gave to the room and even posted it on Twitter at 15. Dips 15. My risk was 1480s. I got in there about 1520s, 1550s, 1580s, 16s. And then I kind of added from there. The next day, it gapped up a little bit. I added into the winner. Went into a parabolic move. I sold about 75, 80% of it. Pulled back, reloaded, and have been trading it pretty well. And I shorted the pop. And I was having actually a pretty nice trade here, but it swiped up. And so rather than, get cute with it and try to, well, I was up a lot. Now, now I'm not. Maybe I'll just wait and see what it does. No, we're not in that kind of market. So if it's not staying heavy, if it's not doing what you think, just get out. And, it's always nice when you start to see it go higher than, where you covered. So overall, a great trade on Friday, though. I got a good piece of this move. And then I was rescaling in there, and then, before it turned into a loser, I just wanted to, cut it off. So, but this is a great example of a VWAP confirmation that we talk about. I talk about confirming levels a lot. So you can see it should have, pulled back, should have stayed heavy, ABC setup, and then squeeze out. So again, I'm going to be doing another recap on this CHKA trade in a bit, but I just want to not underestimate what this can do. We could easily gap up 45, 50, go parabolic into circuit halts, but I want to get a good piece of this trade. So I'm prepared. I don't think I'm going to try to find the top. I won't try to find the top. I might dabble in some here and there, but don't underestimate it. Shorts are stuck, and we might get something that we haven't seen in a while. So be prepared, be aware that it's a special situation, and if and when it does, exhaust out all the shorts, I'll be there. I'll be interested and looking for the backside. Ino. This is the last of the 4 main watches. Clearly, you've got a 1440 level. You can see that each time it based 1430, 1440s. Most of the volume was at 1440s. That's why I call it that. You can see this prior top, this top. Now it became the base, flushes out. And the next level that I had in the room posted early on was 1380s, which is kind of crazy because it went to like 1380. So as noted in the room, make sure you're covering. You should assume that VWAP is going to hold. You should assume that 1380 is going to hold. And you can always re-add. You have to remember, everyone is bent on this name. So if you're not taking advantage of the covers, then you're just going to become one of the other shorts, right? So your edge right now is nailing the panic of shorts, but also covering into the flush until the backside forms. Front side, there's a lot of trades here. A lot of good setups, A-plus setups, stuff moves, unwinds, but it's all up to you whether or not you're taking them. If you're trying to overstay and, force the trade that isn't there yet or isn't proven, you might get it, but most of the time you probably won't. And that's the point here. So obviously 1380s is going to be the next big level. So other than that, fly through some of these. NCLH, higher the better. This chart looks like death. So you should assume that it's going to want to hold this level, but if it starts to gap and fail the next couple days, I'll be looking for a fade. MBOT, higher the better. MBOT was blast from the past. A lot of shorts got stuck. Nice end of day move here, and I actually shorted. I dabbled in a little bit early, and then I got short on this backside, which was fantastic. This is the exact same move that it's done before. 100% same move. So I was kind of prepared not to step in front with any size. I kind of had a feeling that they would exhaust shorts into the close, just like I outlined in the room. So ended up catching about a buck plus to the downside into the close, but I think that the key levels are going to be this 980 and maybe 950, 960 level on Monday if it doesn't gap down. So don't take your eye off it. Great volume. They love to raise intraday. I haven't done the research yet on how much they have left to be able to do that, but I'm sure this is their game. So, but I'll end up doing that before the market open tomorrow. But with that said, shorts just kind of got squeezed. Had a long swing on it from the idea on Thursday from 610s. It was hitting scanner continuously, so I stated I like the big picture idea. But I sold way too soon. I sold into this first ramp. But at any rate, shorted into this failed follow through momentum and also on the backside of this move. But like I said, I did dabble in a little bit, which had I not dabbled in, I wouldn't have been watching it. I would have missed the trade altogether. So MDGS, you guys saw that one. That was a great short. Got faded that one. So hopefully we get some type of opportunity back up to 220. 220 is really the key. Immediately look left. Where did it have trouble with? There's a good chance that it doesn't come, but I would definitely watch that. Any green, I'd be watching because I feel like not a lot of people will. Whatever's moving tomorrow, they'll be super focused on. PSTI, this one's a popular one. I still think it can continue, but I'm going to let it chill out for a couple days. I'd be watching for, pullbacks into mid-11s and maybe pick up some pieces there. Same thing, THMO. As I said the other day, this one reminded me of PSTI. We talk about the wicks every Sunday on these scans. You see them, you saw them. So, I'm going to be, hopefully this pulls back as well. And I'm going to be looking for opportunity there. It had huge volume. Shorts are probably stuck. I think there's opportunity. But again, I want to see it prove, just like PSTI, PSTI when I had added to the swing trade. Whoops. Which was right over here. It was holding very well this day. And so I started to add into the 940s. And it just was a perfect breakout. Worked out really, really well. But that's what I'll be looking for on THMO. I'm going to be looking for it to pull back. Should have failed. Should have failed. Should have failed. Okay, it's starting to get thin up again. And at that point, I'll start to join the trend. TRIO. I took a little bit of this on Friday. Not a big position. It just feels like, you know, they're all coming for these thin post-reverse split names. So I saw a steady buyer in here throughout the day. So I just dabbled a little bit. They had a bidder up there after hours for about 12,000 shares, 15,000 shares at 775. So we'll see what happens. But it definitely is a recent reverse split. And, you know, you never know. So OBCI, great chart, no position. Watching it as a potential trade. So all of these four are potential bigger picture ideas. If they pull back, they start to consolidate again, I'm looking to get involved. Last but not least on the scans, I just had rapid fire GNMK. You know, I think it's pretty obvious why I'm watching this one. It's been consolidating decently the last couple days though. So it had a weak open, nice ABCD setup. So I don't want to get, you know, this has to pull back. But when it does pull back, we're going to get $2, $2.50 a share. You know, so I don't need to be first in. So other than that, big chart, CVNA, ZM, obviously. Higher the better. This was a fantastic one on Friday. This was the level that we talked about, 175. I wanted to see it get heavy, and then I hit it hard. You know, it ended up being a beautiful trade. Went all the way down to 155 after hours, came back a little bit, but somebody was super caught on the wrong side. And as I said in the room, if it breaks at 175, I was expecting 158 to 162. So I got a lot of comments after that. And a lot of people nailed the end of the day. So that was a really nice way to head out for the weekend. Big score. So other than that, TDOC. And you'll see I'm just kind of rapid firing through these charts. And that's all I want to do. LVGO. I just want to see it once. And ZS. And CRWD. I just want to see them. I've seen them once. I'm prepared. And now if I see them again, if they start to break down, I already know that, you know, it's of interest. That's why ZM was, you know, no-brainer for me. Once it just is, everybody's on the wrong side and it's squeeze. Once we get that negative headline, once we get that pullback, the bid pull day, whatever it may be, I want to be there on that day. Same thing with shop. You know, I was watching the moves just like this one. All I'm doing is looking for stuff that has gone straight up without consolidation. That's the key. You know, there's some that consolidate and then they head higher. Once they consolidate, then, you know, I'm not as interested. I need to see it, you know, really exponentially move off that consolidation level. So, you know, so this is not chart overload. This is just see the chart once. Set price alerts, you know, so for example, on this TDOC, I will set price alerts 196, 197, 200, and I will set alerts at 189 and probably 188. That way, if it's just jumping around, I don't see it. But if it starts to crack prior support, I see it. If it starts to break out, I see it. That's how I set my price alerts. And, you know, it's probably been the best change that I've made to taking things off radar, clearing, you know, my screen, my head, and allowing me to really focus on what matters. So, I think that's about it. We've got Christopher DG. You got a free month of IU. Every month we do a free month of IU. So that's what we're doing this week. And so congratulations. Email me, webmaster@investorsunderground.com. We have a ton of new members. We're going to be doing a webinar either this week or next week. I will let the room know as soon as possible. And if you have any questions about coming on board, if you have any questions about Investors Underground, reach out, cam@investorsunderground.com. And he's always available to answer any questions you might have before you come on. Chat room has been incredible. Some of the fastest news out there in the business. And it's really about surrounding yourself with the right people. So everything is firing right now, week after week after week. I'm compounding, which is great. But as I've said, you got to be fully aware of it. Monday is a new day. I know I'm going to be, anxious and ready to go out of the open. So there's a good chance that I lay off pre-market just because I know I'm going to be ready to go. And I just don't want to screw up, with sizing up too much. I can wait for open. I can wait for, that A+ setup. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see if, there's a heavy volume or something pre-market. But for the most part, if I have high conviction on something, but the volume isn't there to support it, hands off until open. And that's when you get in trouble. That's when you start to do things that you shouldn't do. So my focus is really just zoned in A+ setups. Stay away from the things that you get a bias on, right? You nailed mRNA and NVAX, and then you just keep on going back to the well. You nailed Ino, so you think every time's going to be the same. Codex is another one. These things are very, very, not biased, but very, very crowded. Everybody knows they're junk. But if everybody knows they're junk and they're still going up, same thing with ZM. Find me one piece of positive news over the last month. It's been all negative. All of it. And yet it was still going 52-week highs, right? So, just things to think about. But most importantly, the biggest thing that I said to start today is respect that front side of the move. Understand it. I get the same question over and over and over again. And I shared with the room the other day, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I was having like a cold streak. And Scott at Centerpoint, he quoted, who was it? Let me see. I think it was mission of Albert Einstein. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, right? So when I was trading poorly, maybe 3 or 4 years ago for like it was maybe like a month or 2 months, just steady. I kept on doing the same dumb thing, make, and then do something dumb. Make, do something dumb. And he said, you're doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And I was like, did you just call me insane? But he had it right. And so I brought that up on Friday to the room. I'm like, this is the Trader's Lounge where we're doing the mentoring. But if you just switch out the ticker on all these questions that I get about the front side of the moves, it's the same thing. You see something going up and then it pulls back a little bit. Everybody thinks that's it. That's the top. It's unwinding. That's the backside. No. You have to go back and look at the prior levels. You have to wait for it to break. So go back and check out the VWAP pre-exhaustion video on YouTube. And that one kind of gets into the why, the thesis behind it. And also a couple of the video lessons that I did last week also dived right into that. So again, any questions, reach out. You know the drill. If you leave a thumbs up and if you leave your key takeaway from Scan tonight, as always, I try to produce. I did a couple videos. I took some ideas from the comment section. So put your ideas out there. They don't go, unread. I'm reading them. I'm seeing them and taking ideas to do videos. So the more engagement that you guys give me, the more, that I'm happy to make videos. And I'm planning on doing one on CHK very soon. But then I'm going to keep on, pushing out different ideas. And hopefully you guys enjoy them. All right, guys. Thank you. And we'll see you on Monday.